Hey, this is Subspace Transmissions. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Cam.
Cam, we just watched Star Trek Discovery's latest episode, what is passed as prologue. Lots of twists involving certain character deaths, but the plot thread that I want to pick up on here is something that's been building the last few episodes, which is Saru looking much more in command than he has, I think, previously in the season, save for maybe a standout episode like Choose Your Pain.
I thought you were going to say CV Packham Parabellum.
I can only hope that we get more running scenes if Saru becomes the next commander of the Discovery, because right now he is the ranking officer. They are without a captain, and Saru's looked very commanding in the last 3 episodes.
Wait, are you saying Lorca's not coming back?
I don't think that's going to be a possibility, but Cam,
I think that one was left a little in the air, wasn't it?
Cam, what do you think? What do you think about the idea of Saru being the next guy in charge?
I would have been so against this like 3 episodes ago. Yeah. This Mirror Universe arc has been the best thing, I think, to happen to Saru in the entirety of Discovery. I think this character was really floundering for a long time. He's really found, I think, his footing in a command position, which I would not have expected.
Well, for the longest time, we didn't really know what his overall journey was going to be. We knew that he had, that fear running through him that we learned in CV Packham, but we also thought that CV Packham was a rather flat episode.
Right.
The last time we saw him really taking charge on the ship, and it actually took a while, was in Choose Your Pain. He didn't look so great when he was trying to get the crew to get behind him, and a lot of people were, I wouldn't say mutineering, but they weren't the most respectful of his command decisions. But by the end of the episode, he was actually looking pretty good. And then Saru just kind of disappeared for like significant periods. And we didn't know what was going on with him.
And we talked a lot on the podcast about how Saru is a character who's like, we didn't really understand what he wanted.
Yeah.
He was a character you could say is like kind of like the anxiety-ridden character, but he's not obsessing over getting over it. He just seems to kind of wander around in the background a lot. And I love that we saw in this episode that he could be in a command situation and be confident, strong. And we saw it a bit in Vaulting Ambition as well, where he was going up against L'Rell. But this episode in particular, giving the speech about how this is going to be the Discovery's maiden voyage and how he essentially is going to represent, the optimism of Star Trek, a character who's lived with fear all his life, but is, willing to journey forth in a way that kind of represents more of the Roddenberry spirit of discovery and exploration and, meeting other cultures in more positive terms.
I have to believe the aha moment for a lot of the crew was when he said, my species, we can sense death coming, Don't sense it today, people.
Yeah.
And I think everyone is just like, oh yeah, no threat ganglia expanding at this very moment. He may pull through. He may get us alive out of this situation that seems like a no-win scenario, or what I like to call a Kobayashi Maru, Cam.
What do you think about a Kelpien, a species that lives in peril a lot of the time, being a captain and having sort of those diplomatic skills?
I think they'd be delicious. Oh, you mean
awkward.
Like just for the alien-to-alien contact?
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's fascinating because you wonder what his weaknesses are going to be in those kinds of diplomatic situations. Is his fight or flight response going to veer a little bit more towards flight, what doesn't really totally align with what Starfleet protocols are? So you do wonder if maybe that leaves room for a character like Burnham to kind of be that pushback, or there to look at maybe his weaknesses and fill in some of the gaps there. Because I think, Cam, for a long time, we thought that maybe this season of Star Trek Discovery was supposed to be this Burnham redemption arc, which I think has happened.
Sure.
But somehow, some way, she would be in command of the ship, or she would be becoming, much more integrated into the crew, because there's some question marks about whether or not Jason Isaacs would be returning. It seems now as if maybe they've kind of set it up that Saru would still be in command by the time we get to season 2, and perhaps Burnham could be his number 1 at this point. Do you like this 1-2 combo?
Well, I do. You look at the original series, which is so good in how it had Kirk with sort of the, sort of the emotions of Bones and the intellect of Spock on each side. And I like the idea of sort of Burnham being more of the motivational force behind Saru. Do you think there's a second person that could add to this?
Like an alternative first officer?
Yeah.
Well, that's...
Or no, more of like someone to kind of counterbalance like a Burnham opposite Saru.
Well,
like maybe a Stamets?
Yeah, we look at who's left in like the main cast at this point. I think Stamets would be the obvious go-to. I don't know if Ash Tyler
I was thinking Morton Richter.
Oh, Milton
Richter, yeah.
Yeah. There's always Reese, who can't fire his weapons.
Right.
I'd love it for Arium if we actually... Look, we got so much Arium footage.
This episode gets an A for Arium.
Arium A, yeah. So if Arium is like the breakout star, I don't think that's going to be happening though. So I think Stamets is the most likely, I guess, like the closest to Bones, and that he's a little curmudgeon-y.
Right.
So I kind of like this as a triumvirate going forward if they want to fall back into that thing that we've seen in, say, the NX-01 crew as well as the original series.
So I have a question for you. If you look at sort of the captains, and they're all fairly strongly defined figures. You know, Kirk is sort of the action hero captain. Picard is more of like the philosophical. Sisko is like the sort of the war strategist. What is Saru?
Okay, that's fascinating because I would not have thought he'd be the inspirational leader until this speech that he gave. And the worry is that he'd be a little bit too contemplative, like more so than even Picard. So what is Saru? I think the very important thing here is he'd be our first alien captain.
Yes.
He's giving things from a completely non-human perspective, which I think is very, different, and I think that's what Star Trek needs.
And I think it's important for Star Trek going forward to kind of expand beyond what we've seen.
So maybe what we can have here is he is, through trade, a science officer.
Yes.
So I would like to see him as more of the curious kind of guy, which... When we first saw him on the Shenzhou, he was a little reluctant to go investigate that anomaly around the binary stars, but I want his curiosity to be piqued more often than not. And I think this last season, he survived a war, he survived the mirror universe. I think this is a guy who can be way more confident about himself and be happy to pursue what's going on here.
Yeah, and we saw in Choose Your Pain that he can use his instincts to be like a very good tactician. I would love to see, the Captain Saru refining his instincts over the course of the series. I think that would be fascinating to see a captain learning how to be, how to refine what's sort of in his head to become a better captain. We haven't really seen that from a captain. They are usually pretty fully formed.
Yeah, so this is an entirely different take, although I would make an argument that Ben Sisko, he started as a commander, and we actually did see how his command approach changed over the years, but I think Saru would be a kind of a different sort of case study, in that, like you said, like we saw him, I guess, when he's at his least commanding. I think Choose Your Pain was kind of the big showcase there.
Yeah.
We're actually seeing him be an inspirational leader, which I think is really fascinating for this character.
Definitely. I mean, as long as he doesn't wind up as a lunch, anything's good for Saru.